Hello everyone, my name is Megan Sweezel Narona, and today we are here to talk about Herbert Spencer. British philosopher and sociologist Herbert Spencer was a major figure in the intellectual life of the Victorian era. He was one of the principal proponents of the evolutionary theory in mid-19th century, and his reputation at that time revealed that of Charles Darwin. Spencer was born in Derby, England on 27th April 1820, the eldest of 9 children but the only one to survive infancy. He was the product of an undisciplined, largely informal education. His father, George, was a school teacher but an unconventional man. Spencer's father, William George Spencer, was a schoolmaster, and his parents' dissenting religious convictions inspired in him a non-conformity that continued active even after he had abandoned the Christian faith. Upon the death of his uncle Thomas in 1853, Spencer received a small inheritance which allowed him to devote himself to writing without depending on a regular employment. Spencer's health significantly deteriorated in the last 2 decades of his life, and he died in relative seclusion following a long illness on 8th December 1903. From an early age, Spencer was strongly influenced by the individualism and the anti-establishment and anti-clerical views of his father. Indeed, Spencer's early years showed a good deal of resistance to authority and independence. Spencer declined an offer from his uncle, the Reverend Thomas Spencer, to send him to the University of Cambridge, and in consequence, his higher education was largely the result of his own reading, which was chiefly in the natural sciences. He was for a few months a school teacher, and from 1837 to 1841 a railway civil engineer. Spencer eventually trained as a civil engineer for railway, but in his early 20s he turned to journalism and political writing. He was initially an advocate of many of the causes of philosophic radicalism and some of his ideas, for example, the definition of good and bad. From 1848 to 1853, Spencer worked as a writer and sub-editor for The Economist Financial Weekly, and as a result came into contact with a number of political controversialists such as George Henry Lewis and many other such people. Some of his major or important writings are The Principles of Ethics, 1891, Synthetic Philosophy, 1896, Principles of Sociology, 1880, Social Statics, 1850, Principle of Biology, and The Study of Sociology, 1873. He is believed to be the most notable exponent of social evolution. An important work of Spencer, which was shared with both Comte and Durkheim, was his theory of organic analogy, in which he developed the tendency to see society as an organism. He borrowed his concepts from biology. He was concerned with overall structure of society, the interrelationship of the parts of society, and the functions of the parts for each other as well as for the system as a whole. He had compared a society with a living organism by taking into account the following points, which we will speak about. First, there is growth and development of both society and living organism. The process of growth and development is gradual, and it passes from simple to complex. At the time of birth of a living organism, it is very simple. It has no self of its own. But gradually, due to its development, it becomes more and more complex and complicated day by day. In the case of society, we find the same thing. At the time of its origin, it is very small and simple, but becomes vast and complicated gradually. For example, the hunting and food gathering society has now reached at its modern state with the changes in its growth and development. Second, There is a close relationship in its parts and organs. In a biological organism or a living organism, there is a close relationship in the parts. It implies that all the parts or organs are dependent upon each other. In a living organism, for example, each organ performs separate functions for its own. Similarly, this applies to society as well. It is true that all the parts of the society depend upon each other for its continuity. Third, there is importance of whole in both society and living organisms. Although all the parts of the society and living organisms are interdependent, there is an importance of the whole. We cannot realize the importance of the different parts unless we look at the organism as a whole. If one part gets destroyed, then the other ones or new ones are born. There is no break, it continues. This is true in both society and a biological organism too. Fourth, there is one center of control in both society and living organism. In the living organism, the center of control is the brain, which regulates all the activities of the different parts of the whole. Similarly, in case of the society, the government or the administration acts as a center of its control. It controls the functioning of the whole. Its different parts carry out the orders issued by the center of control. So society and the living organism are similar. Fifth, according to Spencer, society and the living organism are similar as both of them follow similar processes and methods for its efficient functioning. For example, in the living organism, the various systems like digestion, circulatory, respiratory are responsible for its functioning, whereas in the society, the transport system, communication system, production as well as distribution fulfill their respective roles. Thus, Spencer clarified that there is similarity between organism and society. These similarities and differences between biological and social organisms are merely a collection of data from the real world societies that serve as a foundation for empirical societies. Spencer maintains that because organisms and societies are both elements of nature, they are all subjected to the forces of evolution and thus follow the principles of evolution. Thank you.